attorney. You probably have seen some of my YouTube videos. I have a YouTube channel. I think the handle is at SSD Attorney, or just type in Jonathan Ginsberg, Social Security Disability Attorney. And I've got about 400 videos out there, about 72,000 subscribers. A lot of people seem to like it. It has been a very, very helpful way for me to get the word out about Social Security disability. And again, I'm hoping that this live stream is sort of just another step in the evolution of trying to get things rolling. So anyway, what I'd like to do here is go over, let me just make sure that I'm in fact streaming, because I'm not seeing any, let's see if we get anybody who's joining me. We do have somebody joining me, so obviously it is working. So I'm going to try to look at the live stream on my computer and see if it's starting to show up here. It looks like it is. Okay, very good. All right, so what I typically do with these, let me turn the sound down. I realize I've got my, okay, so what I typically do with these is to start out by going over just some information that I think would be helpful. This past week, I had 7 hearings, a lot of hearings last week. And just going through the hearings, I was trying to take notes about what people do right, what they do wrong, and also some things I can improve on. So let me just go through, and we'll start with this. These are just some things that I've noticed that people tend to do, and I want you to avoid doing these things, whether you're doing them talking at a hearing or whether you're filling in forms for Social Security. You want to avoid things like statements like not very long, or not too much, or not for any length of time, or it depends, or not much at all, or always, or never. And the reason why is if the judge says, how long can you sit, and you say not very long, that doesn't mean anything. Not very long could be 10 minutes, it could be 2 hours. It depends doesn't help the judge either. What I tell people is you want to think about your impairments on a, not the worst day ever, but not a particularly good day, maybe a average day, minus 10 or 15%. And I realize that you may have a situation where, let's say you have back pain, and your back pain may hurt you. Some days it may not hurt at all. Some days it may be just unbearable, but you have to almost come up with an average, a lower than average day, and just come up with some numbers. But you want to avoid not very long, not too much, not very far. Doesn't tell the judge anything. I also tell people to avoid extremes. Always, never. Because there's nothing really in my experience that is always. My pain is at a level 10 always. Not very likely. I never walk outside. Well, that's ridiculous, but people will say stuff like that. So instead, what I think you should do is be very specific. If the judge says, how much can you lift? I can lift 5 pounds. Maybe once a day I could get to 15 pounds maximum once a day if I absolutely had to, to save my dog from a fire. But 5 pounds I can do relatively regularly. And by the way, a gallon of milk is about 8 pounds. So if you say I can lift a gallon of milk out of the refrigerator and get it to the table, I could do that maybe once or twice. That's a way to answer the question. A gallon of milk, again, being about 8 pounds. If you say I can lift it, but I can't lift it over my head, that's okay. I can lift 5 pounds, but not over my head, or I can't get it from the floor. That's the sort of specificity you want. If you're talking about how much you're standing and walking during the course of a day, 30% of the time, or something like that, or how much time are you in a recliner, during the waking hours, 30 or 40%. The second thing is I want you to know is at a hearing, if you get to a hearing, you're going to be asked very detailed questions about your past work, and it trips people up. And I think it's really important to think about your past work before you actually file for disability, because you're going to be asked these questions in the application process, but especially at a hearing. And I've had a judge today, what is the maximum number of pounds you lifted in a typical day, the most you'd ever lift, 45 pounds. What is the number of pounds you lifted frequently? I lifted 5 pounds, a ream of paper, maybe some files. What percentage of the day were you sitting? What percentage of the day were you standing and walking? The judge asked these questions to help the vocational witness, but again, you don't want to think about them for the first time at the hearing. What percentage of the day are you using a computer to complete reports? You want to be very specific, 30%, 40%. Did you have hiring and firing authority? That's also a question judges ask. And so I think, you're really going to be asked a lot of questions about your past work. So think about them, remember what you did, make notes. It's okay to make notes. And then finally, something that trips people up, this is probably a separate category here, but be prepared to explain earnings after your onset date. In other words, if you claim your onset date was February 15th of 2022, but you have earnings in 2023 or earnings in 2022 that are roughly equivalent to what you earned in 2021, you need to be able to explain that. Was it accrued vacation? Was it short-term disability? Was it donated leave? Just need to know answers to these questions because, again, judges are going to expect you to be able to answer those type of questions and not just think about them for the first time when you're actually at your hearing. So those are just a couple of things that I noticed from my hearings this week that I thought people probably didn't do as good of a job on in some cases. And I think that, if you know these going in, there are certain questions. I think I did a video about this. Every hearing you're going to be asked. So you want to be prepared for that. So that's kind of my intro, to some things I was thinking about. So let's kind of go to some of the questions that I'm getting here. And okay, so somebody just shared my feed with the Facebook brain injury group. Thank you very much. I actually got a call from somebody. I have a friend of mine who unfortunately has a brain tumor, and she had one of her friends call me. We were able to, work something out basically where she didn't need an attorney. She was getting terminated or had a CDR coming up, and I kind of gave her some advice about how to deal with that. But yeah, if you've got brain injuries, cases can obviously really interfere with someone's work capacity. Okay, Sebastian says, hi, I'm on SSDI and was supposed to have a disability continuing review back in January, never received any paperwork. I was wondering, is there such a long backlog? Well, as we talked about a little bit last week, Social Security has suspended all CDRs through the end of the fiscal year, which would be, I think, in this end of September. So my guess is we're not going to see a lot in the CDR front for a while. So don't be surprised if you're not going to see any CDRs anytime soon, because I think they're really focusing, the new commissioner is really focusing on the backlogs at initial and recon. Kira says, hello, I'm curious if my 4 rental properties are considered against me. I don't do anything, I'm a property manager, plus I show passive income and a loss. I'm 54 with moderate stenosis. Okay, passive income, like real estate investments, that is not considered earnings income or active income, so you can have stock dividends or passive income will not count as earnings like W-2 earnings and will not can be considered work against you. So no, that would not be a problem. And by the way, speaking of earnings and so forth, I had a question come up today. Somebody sent me an email, and this person had stopped working in November but continued to get paid through March or April because of accrued leave and some donated leave and things like that. And so this is a case I'm going to be filing for her. The onset date is going to be that date in November when she last physically appeared at work. So it's not the day that you actually stop getting paid. It's the day you actually stop physically going into the office and doing it at a full-time basis. Jim says, I'm in step 4 reconsideration, received this message. Says representative started final review to make sure I met non-medical requirements. Yet non-medical requirements would be, do you have enough earnings credits? Is there anything else that would prevent you? Is there workers' compensation, something that would offset you in an SSDI case? If it's an SSI case, it could be household income or assets that could disqualify you, but those are the non-medical factors. So sometimes if they've already made a decision on the medical factors and they're going to the non-medical factors, that could be a good sign that they've decided you are medically disabled, but the question is, do you meet the non-medical factors? Lopsided Laurie, I'm not going to even ask what that's all about, but all right, lopsided. I was granted disabled, however, the refusal to pay me due to self-employment income, not being understood or filed prior to me being labeled disabled, have to pay 42 times. Well, again, self-employment income is income. So the question is, if you were doing work for that income, and that was after your onset date, that could be a problem. Now, you can subtract cost of doing business. Let's say you have special equipment that allows you to do it, or you have to hire people to do things. It depends on your corporate structure, but those things would come off the top. But if you have essentially net income that is over SGA, which in 2024 is $1,550, that would be a problem. So sometimes, a judge would grant you, then Social Security does its review and says, wait a minute, we see income coming in here. You've got to prove that was either passive income or that you can reduce it by operating expenses. Ms. Sandra Washington, thanks for sharing. My pleasure. Okay, Woody from Vegas. I guess there are a lot of people in Vegas named Woody. That's a good name if you live in Vegas. So good for you, Woody. You're 53 with 38 years of construction with spondylolisthesis, MRI and EMG test, 3 epidurals, 10th grade education. Be contacting me. Yeah, I think you got a pretty good case. That looks pretty good to me. And I'll remember Woody, absolutely. What if I write a book and get royalties, but Social Security will they take away your monthly payments? Interesting question, because the royalties would not be a problem, but the writing of the book would be potentially considered substantial gainful activity. So if you write the book, you need to be prepared to explain how many hours a day or hours a week you put towards writing that book. Are you having it ghostwritten? What are you actually doing? Because remember, SGA can be earnings, it can be volunteer activity, it can be something going to school, it can be equivalent to SGA. So my concern here would be, if you're writing a book, how much of the time you're spending writing the book, during a week, would that be equivalent to a job? And what is a book author make on an hourly basis? They would actually look at it. Do you help Spanish-speaking clients? Actually, we do. I have 3 people in my office who are fluent in Spanish. In fact, I have a paralegal who is a medical doctor. She is based in Guatemala. I have a person in Mexico City, and I have a person in Oklahoma who is fluent in Spanish. So yes, we do help Spanish-speaking clients. So if you have that question, just call my main office number, and Paola, my receptionist, is Spanish-speaking. She can help you. And if she can't, then or you leave a message, then Madeline is also fluent in Spanish. She could call you back too. Okay. Is the new past relevant work going to apply to everyone where new filers or claimants waiting on decisions and hearings? Okay, what James is asking is the new look back for past relevant work. It was 15 years. Now it is going to be 5 years. I think June 8th is the effective date. So I would say that any hearing after June 8th, they're going to be looking back 5 years. So since we're almost in June, I would say that any case filed now, or even that was filed in the last couple of months, or even the last 6 months, is going to be the 5-year look back. So I think we're, for all intents and purposes, in the 5-year look back territory. The hearings I had today or last week, a couple of the judges said, well, by the time this decision is issued, it will be after June 8th. I think June 8th is the day. So I'm going to use a 5-year look back. A couple of them use the 15-year look back. But again, after June, the effective date in June, it's going to be a moot point. But I think for any new cases going forward, it's going to be a 5-year look back. And what that does basically is, by looking back only 5 years, Social Security recognizes that jobs that somebody did 15 years ago aren't particularly relevant to whether you could do that job today. And in fact, because think about it, how many jobs, let's say that, I'll just take an example as an attorney. Okay, back 15 years ago, we didn't have the internet the way it is now, all the resources we have now. We didn't have Zoom video conferencing the way we have now, Microsoft Teams. Stuff was starting to become effective, but things have completely changed, certainly since the pandemic. So, the way I do my job is a lot different than I did 15 years ago. And I think, for a lot of jobs, technology has made a big change. In fact, there's a lot of discussion in the Social Security, the listservs I'm on. There are jobs that the DOT, or the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, considers, unskilled, but if you look at them, they're in fact the stuff that you have to do. You have to go to, let's say, being a document preparer or a copy machine operator. Well, 15 years ago, you go to the copy machine, you put a copy on, you press a button, and it generates a piece of paper. Now it's scanned and it goes to a computer. You've got to be able to download the file, put it into a directory, give it a name. That's a multi-step process, and it requires a lot more skills. So operating a copy machine, pressing a button is unskilled, but scanning it to a computer and saving it and processing it is semi-skilled. That's an example of a job that exists in a much different way in the DOT, than it does realistically. So the 5-year look back is to reflect that the jobs that existed 15 years ago are not done the way they are now. Okay, let's see. Okay, pastoral at work. Good evening, Carmen. How are you doing? Let's see. I never got back. Let's see. Cancer-free. I never got back with a free disability lawyer. Never got to my application for this, but I've been sick and went on with it. Never returned his calls. Never filled out the. Well, again, unless you apply, nothing's going to happen. We file in my office, I do a lot of applications for people. I talked to a lady today, as a matter of fact, who said, I've got so much going on in my life. I don't have the time to mess with this. I don't know what to say on the application. Will you just do it? And, the pros and the cons obviously are when you hire a lawyer to do an application, the lawyer's going to get 25% of your past due benefits. Although realize that if you're applying and you just stop working, the first 5 months are the waiting period. You don't get paid the first 5 months, so there's no attorney's fees because the first no past due benefits the first 5 months. So if you happen to get approved early, and I've had some cases like that, the fee you pay may be $300 or $400, not very much at all. And if it doesn't get approved and you end up going to recon or you go to a hearing, then you would have had an attorney anyway. So I'm mixed. I understand and I respect people who want to do it on their own and then call an attorney if they get denied. That's perfectly fine with me. There's no harm in doing that. On the same time, by the same token, if you don't feel like you're up to filling out 65 questions on an application and dealing with all that stuff and you want some help filling out the forms, then it might make sense to have an attorney do it for you. We also do it electronically, so we can confirm it's been received and things like that. So it's just less stress. That's really all it is. But you don't need an attorney to do an application, and in some cases, I would tell people, especially if they've got a terminal cancer case where it's a compassionate allowance or they clearly meet a listing, go ahead and do it yourself. I would tell somebody to do that and do it all the time. I want to do what I want to add value is what it boils down to. So, sometimes people feel like it makes more sense for me to do it. Other times they want to try it on their own and call me if they're denied. And either way is fine. But cancer-free, which I hope you are cancer-free, if in fact you still believe you want to pursue it, then, talk to an attorney. I mean, fill out my form. Go to ssdanswers.com, fill out the questionnaire, and I'll get back to you, or reach out to a local attorney, and perhaps they're still viable for you to pursue disability. Let's see, no, it was 2015 and 2016. Self-employment. I don't really understand, because when were you granted disability? If you were granted back then, that could be the problem. And if you were granted disability in 2020, your earnings in 2015 or 16 would not make a difference. That doesn't make any sense to me. So maybe you can tell me more. Jamie says, if I get denied in recon, do I need an attorney? I do it myself without the attorney with the next steps. So she's questioning, can I file the recon appeal on my own? Absolutely. Again, you don't have to have an attorney to do a recon appeal. Some people hire me or other attorneys at recon. Like I said, some people hire me at the beginning. I would not do a hearing on your own, but doing the initial and the recon, go for it. If you feel like you've got a strong case and you can argue it, or you can make the compelling argument on the paperwork and you can save the 25%, I'm all about that. I mean, look, if obviously somebody filing for disability, they're not working, every dollar counts, and if you can do it on your own and get an approval, go for it. I mean, that's kind of why I have all those videos out there. I want people to be empowered to do that. I mean, we have a place, attorneys have a role, but if you can do it on your own, I'm absolutely okay with that. It does, and like I said, it doesn't offend me. Somebody calls me up. I talked to a guy today, and he's like, "I'm going to go ahead and apply my own. If I get denied, I'm going to call you." I'm like, "Great. Here's some things I want you to think about. These are some things to look at, and put this on your application. It'll improve your chances. And write me a nice review. If you win, write me a nice review. In fact, this is where you would go. Go to. Let me put this on the screen here. 1 second here. I've got a new setup here. But yeah, this is my website, jonathanginsberg.com, and you can go review me, click there, and you can hit review Jonathan. There's an Avo review, LinkedIn, Google. So if you are, if you do it on your own and you got some value out of what I provided, then leave me a review, and that's perfectly fine for me. That'd be great. Okay, let's get back to the questions here. Let me go back to my screen here. Okay, I don't feel like I have enough wrong with me, but I've been diagnosed with severe COPD and emphysema, 58, and have no income. I think that COPD and emphysema are difficult because, any type of breathing issue is difficult, but you're 58 as well. And, I could certainly make an argument that if you have really bad COPD or emphysema, that might limit your capacity to do light work. Light work being standing and walking 6 out of 8 hours in a day. And so, if you can't do light work and you don't have transferable skills, then the grid rules, which again we'll take a look at here. If you go to the gridrules.net page, if we go to light RFC, which basically means that your capacity to work is limited to light, and again, standing and walking 6 out of 8 hours, lifting 10 pounds frequently, 20 pounds on occasion. If you have bad COPD and emphysema, you might not be able to. So here we go to the magical 202.06, 55 plus, high school grad or more, does not provide for direct entry into skilled work, semi-skilled or skilled background with skills not transferable, you are disabled. I win a lot of cases under 202.06. I mean, a significant number because, it's a very, very powerful tool. Basically, this says even if you could do light work, you can lift 10 pounds frequently, 20 pounds on occasion, you can stand and walk for 6 out of 8 hours, you are still disabled. Because if you don't have any transferable skills, because this reflects Social Security's recognition that there are very few jobs out there for a person who is over 55 who's got physical limitations. And even though emphysema, it's a physical limitation. It's going to limit you from, walking very far. I'd go to very far. It's going to be from walking for, let's say, more than an hour or two a day total. That's why I think it's a really powerful tool. So, you might talk to your pulmonologist, talk to your doctor and say, what do you think, would you agree that my capacity to walk has really been eroded by the emphysema? Keep a log. There are a lot of apps out there. Keep a log. In fact, there's a gentleman a fellow attorney who sent me an example. He's got an app called, My Medical Journal. If you go to, it's a couple bucks. If you go to your app store, My Medical Journal. So, that's an example of one. I'm testing it right now, but it, allows you to kind of keep track of your symptoms on a day-to-day basis. So if you're having trouble catching your breath, walking more than 20 or 30 feet because of emphysema, that could very well put you in the light category. If you get a little bit of medical support, maybe you got a case. I look at everybody over 55, I'm going to look real closely at, because I've had pretty good results with those cases. DD Partlow. I'm 58, diagnosed with suffer cervical and lumbar stenosis, had shoulder replacement surgery. Any ideas of a chance of approval if I'll have to go in front of a judge? Being 58, again, that grid rule could really come into play, and cervical and lumbar stenosis is going to limit your lifting, your walking, as with the shoulder replacement surgery. So I would say, again, it depends on what the MRI show, what the current medical shows, but just on its face, your age, the nature of your injury, if it's significant, I'd say decent shot. Now, I will tell you, musculoskeletal cases are difficult because that's the number one reason people file for disabilities, back and neck injury. So they make it really hard to win those cases early. If you look at the listing for musculoskeletal cases, and let's take a look at it right now. Let me pull it over here. Give me 1 second. And let's switch over here. So this is my website called meetalisting.com, where I kind of go through, how to meet a listing, and just some examples, and I talk about how to win and things like that. But if you go here, you can link to the listings. So let's look at the musculoskeletal listing. I'm not sure how well you can see this on your screen, but this is the musculoskeletal listing. And they've changed this a couple of years ago to make it more difficult. So, you've got to basically have, where you can't walk, difficulty walking without a cane or a walker. You can't really lift anything. You are, you're having an amputation. You have had or you need surgery. You have a non-healing fracture. They make it really, really hard. So what that says to me is, in my experience, very, very few cases are approved at the listing level for musculoskeletal. So since the adjudicators at the state agencies, when they look at your case for a possible early approval at initial and recon, they're generally looking for a listing level impairment. Now you can win with the grid rules on that, and I've done that before, but they're looking for a very, very serious level of impairment. So I tell people with a back injury, neck injury, shoulder problems, we will try to win early. We'll try to show that you can't do anything, but don't be surprised if you get turned down. They really put the level of impairment has to be just really, really high at the initial and recon, whereas you get to a hearing, a judge is going to look at other things in addition to that, medication side effects, maybe anxiety or depression that's gone along with it, maybe some other issues you may have. So I would say, if I had to give you percentages, the chances of winning early with a musculoskeletal case, unless it's really, really severe, maybe 25%, 30%. I'd say 70% chance you're going to go to a hearing on it. That's just the reality of it, and that's just because they make it so difficult to do. But it's 58. You got a pretty good argument there, I think. Again, without looking at the MRIs, I can't say for sure, but I would say that would be a case I would look really, really closely at, because it's probably viable. Thank you, Scylla. I appreciate that very much. Scylla sent me $1, a couple of bucks, which I appreciate. Okay, let's go back over here. Let's see, I got. Casey says, I'm 43, legally blind, and haven't worked in 10 years. SSA approves you. Yeah, the problem is you don't have earnings credits, although I know the rules for blindness are a little bit different, so I don't want to, I don't deal with many blindness cases, so I would ask your attorney about that. But I mean, the question is, do you have enough insurance credits? And I think the rules are different for blindness. And again, I just don't want to give you bad information, so I don't know. I would talk to your attorney about that. Yo, what's up? I'm a Giants fan. Well, you're going to probably have a disappointing year this year in football, because the Giants are not going to be very good. Now, of course, I'm in Atlanta, where the Falcons just drafted a quarterback when they just paid Kirk Cousins multi-millions of dollars, and nobody can figure out why, since they have no pass rush and they have not a very good defense. So I'm making fun of the Giants, but the Falcons are probably going to be just as bad. An aside. Okay. Lisa says, is there anything that we can do that would help getting approval in the first try without lawyers or going to court? I think that one thing you might look at doing is, I think if you have all your medical lined up, there is let me pull this up here. There is a website I talked about last week, and I'm going to go ahead and show this to you. It is called howtogeton.wordpress.com, also called the Sleepy Girl's Advice for Social Security, I think. And she has a page here with sample residual functional, I assume it's a she, Sleepy Girl, I'm guessing it's a she, sample residual functional capacity forms. That would help. I think if you got a good functional capacity form, and here's a physical one, here's a mental one, PTSD, pain forms, look through those. Now, these are not customized. These are not, when I do them, I customize them. But, it is better than not having one. So I would tell you that if you could, get a form filled out by your doctor, if the medical records show a severe level of impairment, and you make it very clear in your application, I think this meets a listing. This meets, let's just go over here. Let's say this meets listing 1.21, or this meets, grid rule 202.06. That would be what you'd want to do. You want to tell them in the application, in the comments section, why they should approve you. Even in the strongest cases, and literally, I have a case tomorrow with a gentleman who is in a nursing home. I'm not going to go into detail why, because it's I don't want to disclose any confidences. But this gentleman is clearly, anybody with a pulse would realize this gentleman is disabled. But they denied him twice, and he's been at this level for a couple of years. So there's no telling what they will do. The more you I will tell them, here's the admissions from the nursing home. It doesn't sometimes matter. The adjudicators are so overworked that I think sometimes that it's just easier just to stamp denied on a file and turn it down as opposed to granting it. So this is just the reality of the situation. So is there any guarantee? No, but I think if you get a good functional capacity form, if you make your argument, you identify the specific listing and or grid rule, and you have all your medical lined up, you've got objective tests, MRIs that show a nerve root impingement on a herniated disc, that's going to give you your best shot at it. We get a lot of cases approved early because when I file an application, I'll put on the application, please evaluate this case under grid rule 201.06 or 202.06, or please evaluate under the listing or the compassionate allowance or whatever. Sometimes they read it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I'll call up the adjudicator and ask them. Sometimes I can't get a hold of anybody. So it's just, right now it's overworked. Again, the commissioner is doing what he can, I think, to help get that backlog taken down, where I think we'll have more cases approved, hopefully early, because a lot of people suffer. A lot of people suffer when their cases are not approved early. Excuse me. No trespassing order. You don't deserve. I don't know what that means, Lori. I'm sorry. That there's obviously some issue with your case, and I don't, without looking into the details, I don't know. So I don't want to misrepresent anything. Okay. How much weight, Kendra says, very good question, Kendra. How much weight does a vocational expert have at a hearing level if an ALJ has a low approval rating? Well, realize that the judges are not allowed to substitute their knowledge for that of a vocational witness. And the vocational witnesses, if you don't know, are the people there that talk about, describe your past work, and answer hypothetical questions from the judge about what you might be able to do. The problem is that the judge is asking the hypothetical questions, and the judge knows what the answers are going to be. So if the judge says, Mr. Vocational Witness, and let's say the vocational witness clearly believes you're disabled, supports you 100%. Not that they would ever tell you that, but let's say that's in the VE's mind. The judge says, Mr. Vocational Witness, I want you to assume we have an individual the same age as our claimant, the same work experience, the same work background, and everything else. So same medical conditions and same everything. Identical person, but a hypothetical. This person is limited to light work. No climbing ladders, ropes, or scaffolds. No working on hazardous equipment or in unprotected heights. This person is limited to lifting 10 pounds frequently with the right upper extremity. This person should not bend, kneel, crouch, or crawl, but can bend, kneel, crouch, or crawl occasionally. This person can use the right dominant hand for fine motor manipulation on a regular basis. Could this person return to the claimant's past work? Yes or no? Are there other jobs? Well, that hypothetical, there are other jobs this person could do. And the judge knows that because the judge has had lots of hearings. So if the judge asks a question with a lot of mild limitations, the vocational witness is going to say, yeah, this person could be a order taker or a hand packer or a laundry marker or whatever they come up with, these simple unskilled type of jobs. So the vocational witness is important, but to some degree the judge's questions are going to take the vocational witnesses really out of play, because the judge knows what the vocational witness is going to say. Now, where the vocational witness can be helpful would be, are there transferable skills? And those can be a little more difficult for a judge to necessarily know what the VE is going to say. But, if the judge gives a very complicated hypothetical and says, are there transferable skills, the vocational witness will go to the DOT, the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, other resources, and look it up. So the VE is important, but, a judge with a low approval rate is not going to be, the VE is not going to, rescue you from a judge with a low approval rate. And look, you can still win with judges with low approval rates. You just have to have really, really strong evidence, and you have to be really, prepared. I've won many cases with judges. There's a judge in Atlanta with a 17% approval rate. I won a fibromyalgia case in front of him years ago. So it can happen. I'm not going to say it happens a lot, but it can happen. I would also tell you, the older you are, if you're over 50, that's going to help. Low-paid judges typically are going to be more low pay for people under 50. When you get over 50, they tend to be a little more reasonable. And again, I think just some judges feel like, anybody under 50 should be able to adapt. So that's my take on that. Elizabeth says, what should I expect about a hearing within 3 weeks about my back pay? So basically, when you have your hearing, it can take anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks to get a decision. The reason for that is that Social Security sends it out to a decision writer. The decision writer has to draft the decision, send it back to the judge. Judge has to issue it. So again, 4 to 6 to 12 weeks, you get a decision. Once the decision is issued, if it's SSDI only, you're probably going to see your money within 2 or 3 weeks. If it's SSI and SSDI, it's a concurrent case. There's an SSI component to it that would apply during the 5-month waiting period. Then they'll have to do an income and resource interview. That's going to add time to it, and that can add literally months to it. So I've got a couple of cases where my client filed for both SSI and SSDI. As a practical matter, there will be no SSI because the SSDI will offset it, but they have to go through the exercise. It's going to be 5-6 month delay. But if it's no SSI, then I think that your chances of getting, assuming you get approved, is going to be much, much faster. All right, let me just take a second here. Let me just show you, I think I talked about this last week. I have a website, this is actually the wrong website. This is one of my websites called For Social Security Disability. But the website I want to tell you about is here. This is called ssdanswers.com. I got a lot of websites, as you probably see. And just want to let you know about this. If you want a download, this is a Secrets to Winning Disability Survival Kit. You put your name in there, and it'll come by email. Free information. Again, I'm a big believer in giving a lot of free information out. And if you want a case evaluation, here's where you would request it. So wanted just to be, let people know about that. Obviously, I'm looking for good cases. So if this has been valuable to you and you've got a case you're not already represented and you want a case evaluation, fill this out. I look at all of them. If I can help you, I will do so. If it's something that I think that, if I'm really, really busy, like I was last week, I'll refer it out to some other folks that I do a lot of work with. But one way or the other, somebody's going to call you back. And, if we can be of assistance, I would be more than happy to do so. That is how to request a case evaluation, ssdanswers.com. Okay, back from our commercial break. Okay, let's see here. Jim, that was my question. Do you think they approved my medical since they're doing a final review of non-medical? I hate to say absolutely, because I don't know. I mean, I just don't know what the details are, but I would say that is a reasonable conclusion. I hope that is your conclusion for you. Kendra says, can we ask for a new judge if my case gets remanded from the Appeals Council? I don't think the judge wants to be judged by the AC. No. When the AC remands a case the first time it goes to the same judge. I've heard of people asking for a different judge if the decision showed something really unusual, but it's pretty rare. It makes no sense, but they send it back to the same judge. A second AC appeal, they'll give you a different judge. And I realize judges in disability cases, they move around. So, that judge may not be there anymore. And I've had cases where, in fact, I had a case last week, one of my 7 cases, where I had a case where we had a hearing, gone through the whole hearing, judge listened to the evidence, did the VE questions and everything, waiting for a decision. All of a sudden I get a new hearing date. So I'm like, what's going on? Nobody would tell me. We get in front of the judge and she's like, well, the problem is the former judge retired before he got the decision out, so I'm gonna have to do it all over again. So my client ended up having to wait another 8 months because the judge retired and never bothered to complete the decision. That can happen too. So, I would say that, if it goes back to the same judge and the AC has said, give another look at it, many judges, not all, many judges are a little bit intimidated by that and say, they're going to be more likely to want to approve, especially if it comes from federal court through the AC. Other judges don't care, but you can't ask for another judge unless there's evidence that this first judge was somehow prejudicial against you or just did something really unusual that would warrant them to remove him or her. So it won't be a new judge the first time around. I've been approved, Zippy says, I've been approved for SSDI in January of 22. I received a wage and employment authorization form in 820 wanting to my wages. What would happen if I went over SGA 4? Okay. So are you saying that after you were approved, Social Security looked back and said, oh, we think there were earnings in 2019, 20, and 21, therefore you might have been overpaid? That would be a problem. And I think that you need to really look at your earnings, maybe sit down with an accountant type of person and see if there's any way to make those earnings or show that those earnings were passive income, that there were expenses going on with them, something like that. But if in fact you were working and during the time that you were found disabled, you could be in an overpay situation, which you can, by the way, bankrupt on. You can also ask them to waive it. But yeah, that's a problem. That is a problem. Okay. Presumptive disability, Glenn says, presumptive disability ends May 31, but SSA has not finished processing my application. What are my options? Says they've been assigned, but they're swamped. I don't think you have any options. I mean, I believe presumptive disability goes for SSI cases. I don't know if it can be renewed. I just don't know. I really don't know much about presumptive disability, so I'm probably not the person to ask about that. I don't know. This might be something that Greg Brinkley, you might want to reach out to Greg Brinkley, and let me show you who he is. Greg is a friend of mine. I had him on my podcast a while back. He has a site called gregbrinkley.org, and he's got, offers different services, but you could reach out to Greg and see if he might be able to help you. He's got a YouTube channel called the Disability Yoda channel. So, it might be worth reaching out to Greg to ask that question about presumptive disability, because he previously worked as a office head in a Social Security office. But Greg is a nice guy, and he's very helpful, and he does things kind of on a fee basis, but he might answer a quick question for you. I don't know, but he's definitely somebody I keep on my short list to call if I have questions about something unusual with Social Security. Okay. Let's see here. Bluegrass says, 53, just to interview start SSDI, received my 3373, which is one of their forms. I'm 100% P&T veteran, still go to VA trauma counselor. I'm just concerned. Okay, I mean, I think that, we've talked about this before. A 100% VA A disability rating is not binding on Social Security. It is relevant. They will consider it. They will also, if you're 100%, move you to the front of the line when it comes to getting your case processed. I would say, get your VA records to Social Security. They'll request them, but you can also download them. And if you have a doctor there, a psychologist there, ask the psychologist, will he fill out a form? And get one of those, RFC forms, these functional capacity forms from Sleepy Girl, and go ahead and ask your VA doctor to fill it out. And I think that would certainly help. That would certainly help. And look, I will tell you, to be honest with you, mental health cases with the treatment's been at the VA are difficult. They're not easy because there's just a lot of, a lot of the VA records are hard to read. They're voluminous. There's not a lot of one-on-one, a lot of group therapy. They tend to over-medicate. So, but you can still win them if the VA talks about something pretty significant. I forgot to ask this before. I mentioned this in the last live stream. The way the technical part of this works, the microphone and the video are coming from separate feeds. Are you seeing me in real time? Is my voice behind the video or vice versa? Let me know if there's a delay, because I can adjust that, because I know it's a little disconcerting when you see that. So let me know if you see a delay of some type between my talking and the video. So because again, I can change that. 'Cause like I said, sometimes it's lined up pretty well. I kind of guessed right. What I have to do is there's an offset I have to put in there. So let me know, please, if I figure out the offset correctly. Okay, I'll change it if it's not. Okay, let's see here. Let's see, 1 or 2 months. Shouldn't they check that out before approved? 1 or 2 months. I'm not sure if you mean 1 or 2 months. Shouldn't they check the? Well, what happens sometimes is people file amended tax returns. There is evidence of all good. Okay, so it looks like I'm my voice and my face are in sync, which is not always the case in real life either. I will tell you. You'd think they could figure that out, but they don't always. And sometimes people get approved, and then they later on, do an audit, and they find out that the person was actually working. The income information comes in late, and you're in an overpay status. So you'd think they would have figured it out, but no. What does the attorney do at a hearing level? A lot. That's what I do most of the time. First of all, it's a good question. I'm not being facetious about it. The main thing I would say that I do, if you ask me what I do, is I really try to have a working theory of my case. What is my argument? Am I trying to prove that my client meets a grid rule, meets a listing, that the functional capacity has been so reduced by medical problems, and what are the elements? Why is the functional capacity reduced? Is it because of the physical issues? Is it because of depression, anxiety, medication side effects, things like that? Just, I'm real fond of saying, if you don't know what you're trying to prove, you can't prove it to somebody. So I got to be able to know what I'm trying to prove to a judge. So first thing is I got to know what I'm trying to prove, what the argument I'm trying to make is. Number two, I got to make sure the evidence is all there. One of the things that Social Security doesn't tell you is when you request a hearing, it goes from the state agency to the hearing office. Well, nobody's developing the medical anymore. There's nobody requesting medical information. So a lot of what I do once we request a hearing is make sure the medical record is updated. Believe it or not, I've had people that call me at the last minute to do a hearing. I look at the record, the last medical update was a year and a half ago. That ain't going to work. So making sure the medical record is updated, that's a big part of what I do. Making sure all the pre-hearing forms are filled out, the recent medical treatment, the work history form, the medication list, that's all done. I prepare my client. We practice answering questions. Like I talked at the very beginning about, how do you answer a question? How long can you sit? How long can you stand? I can't tell you how many times I'll talk to somebody, I'll say, well, how long can you sit? Oh, I can sit about 45 minutes. I'm like, really? You got 3 herniated discs? Well, I'm in my recliner. Well, that's not the point. The point is how long can you sit in an office chair? So, just making sure that's done, working through the all the jobs and making sure we can describe them properly. Just making sure there's no surprises. That's a big part of it. So, just those type of things. Being prepared to cross-examine the vocational witness. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be a harsh cross-examination, but if the vocational witness says something that's ridiculous, I'm going to spot it. Identifies a job that, there are a couple of jobs in the DOT that talk about microfilm, that talk about, things that microfiche that nobody uses anymore. You can attack those. Things like that. Jobs like I mentioned, the copier job. This person could be a copier attendant. Well, wait a minute, Mr. Vocational Witness. Isn't it true that to be a copier attendant now you've got to be able to, download to a computer, save a file, enter into a directory? Isn't that a 5-step process as opposed to a 1-step process? Well, yeah, that would really eliminate that job. Or sometimes the VEs just make a mistake when they're describing, or they hear the hypothetical wrong. So things like that. Just presenting the case to the judge, making an opening statement. So those are really, that's, I would say, what I do is just really getting the case ready, and making sure that my client knows not to get caught up in some of the the not very much, not very far. I had a case today with a client, very, very nice lady, very, very sweet, from a different country. And the judge would ask a question and she would just go off on a tangent because she didn't really fully understand the question. How much can you lift? And she would start talking about what she lifted. Well, I lifted a book. Well, okay, but what is it? How much did that weigh? So, I'm jumping in saying, Ms. So-and-so, I appreciate that. I'm not trying to be rude, but we want to know, how much can you lift? How many pounds? Oh, okay, I can lift about 5 pounds. Just things like that, because people get nervous, and so I try to bring them back. So, that's at the hearing level, just making sure that I'm kind of shepherding this case through the process. I know what's supposed to happen. I know if the judge is getting frustrated. Again, my hearing today, the judge at one point said, Mr. Ginsberg, we're at 45 minutes. I need to get to the VE. Well, what she's telling me is wrap it up, guy. So I'm like, okay. So I wrapped it up, went to the VE, got the questions worked out really well. The case will be approved. But, a claimant, an individual doing it on your own, you're not going to pick up on that. You don't know, what the judge is thinking. So that's the sort of thing. And then, of course, afterwards, going over what happened and helping my client understand just the likelihood of what's going to likely happen here. So that's kind of what some of the stuff I do. And of course, I've got a staff, got really good folks on my staff that help with all this stuff, getting the medical records together and the forms together and things like that. And what I do also is, for my clients, I have a whole screen capture library of how to fill out the forms. So the forms you're going to see before the hearing, here's how to fill them out. Let's go over them. Let's make sure they're correct. I get them submitted to make sure they're submitted properly, that type of thing. Okay. But that's a fair question and a good question. I got no problem. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, if one of your clients are approved for disability 4 or 6 years later, they want to reevaluate, will you represent clients? Okay, so the question is, if somebody's approved and 4 or 6 years later, Social Security does a CDR, will you re-represent the client? If so, how would your fee be calculated? I do. I have done it sometimes. The rub is this: if they move to terminate, and basically what I do is, if somebody just gets the form, the short form or the long form, in fact, let me see if I can pull those up for you because I talk about these a lot. Let's see, short form, CDR. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, and let's look at the. Okay. Short form disability form. Okay, here it is. I'm going to pull up the long form too, so bear with me 1 second. Okay, all right, so here is the short form, and you can just type in short form CDR, or short form Social Security Disability Review. It's short. I mean, literally, it's machine read. Within the last 2 years, have you worked for someone who's been self-employed? If you check no, okay, then it's machine read. Check the block which best describes your health, better, same, or worse. You check same or worse, that's going to work against them doing a review. within the last 2 years has your doctor told you can work? If you put yes on any of these, they'll look at it further. But if you put no, there's a good chance they're going to basically see no earnings, nothing has really changed, and they'll just drop it. So, if somebody gets a short form, I'll say, send it to me, I'll look at it, if it's my client, and, say, this is, we may talk about it briefly, but go ahead and submit this. The long form is a little more different. The long form here is 12 pages. And so what it has in here, let me go to the top over here, some pages of instruction, and it asks for all this information here, kind of like an application. This is something that's going to take more time to do. So again, what I would do is I would tell an existing client, I'll review it briefly, but if you need to have a consultation, I might charge you $50 for a consultation just to go over it. If they are moved to terminate, and basically that means Social Security decides they're going to terminate benefits, you have to file what is called a request for reconsideration. If the person elects to have benefits continue while they are appealing, there's no past due benefits. So therefore, I would say, I'm happy to represent you, but you're going to have to pay up front, and we're probably looking at $3,500, $4,000. Not inexpensive because you're doing a recon and a hearing. If they elect to have benefits stop, they don't choose the election to have benefits continue, there would be past due benefits. And I've had cases where I would do that on a contingency, based on the past due benefits that have accrued while we're waiting for the case to go to a hearing. Obviously, this is a terrible situation. Nobody wants to be without money. And so basically Social Security is asking you to choose between, keeping your money coming in while you wait, but not having to pay an attorney out of pocket, or losing your benefits for a couple of years so you can have past due benefits, you can get an attorney on a contingency. Two really, really bad choices. So the answer is yes, but realize it's going to be, either if it's simply looking at the form for my existing client, no, I'm not going to charge them. Or if I've got to spend some time, I may charge, nominal $50, something like that. If it's actually for representation, it's going to depend on A, whether they chose to have benefits continue, and B, whether the medical evidence supports the person is still ongoing disabled. Because obviously if I take a case under a no fee unless you win contingency, I've got to feel pretty comfortable that it's going to be approved again. So, obviously we don't want CDRs, they're not good, and it's really, really difficult to get representation for them. And it's too bad that they put you in this situation. I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's just the truth of it. Okay, what is the rule to keep your disability if you live in another country part of the year? Native Americans, there is some stuff online about that. I don't know the specific rules. You can look up receiving disability benefits in a foreign country, and you'll see some information. There's a couple pamphlets from Social Security, but I don't know how long you'd have to be in the States versus overseas, and there are certain countries where it's not a problem to be overseas at all. What is recon? Recon, Robert says, what is recon? It is reconsideration. After you get denied, you file an application, you are denied. The first appeal is called a request for reconsideration. We just abbreviate it as recon. So it is the first appeal that you file after you've been denied. Okay. Timothy says you can apply over the phone with an SSI rep. The first call, they'll set up a time and a date. You can apply with the rep over the phone. They call it. That's correct. You can call 800-772-1213. Be prepared to wait on hold. I would tell you that it is better to go to, I'll show you the link, ssa.gov/apply for disability. It is better to go here, hit apply for disability, learn how to apply, and then submit an application, start an application. You just click some buttons here, click, 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 start a new application, and then, I'm applying for myself. Do you have a My Social Security account, which you should have? I'm not going to go any further on this, but you can do it online. I think it's better to do it online than to do it over the phone, but yes, you can do it over the phone if you so desire. It's just the phone system is just really, it takes forever. Let's see. Where to turn if someone is bedridden and very young and riddled with neuropathy. again, if you've got, even a young person can be found disabled if the medical evidence shows that the person is truly bedridden, and you've got support from a doctor, treating doctor, neurologist, pain doctor, ideally a specialist, is willing to say, my patient is bedridden because of this neuropathy, and there's a reason for it. Is it some sort of is it diabetic neuropathy? Is it some sort of polyneuropathy? You've got something really, really severe, then yeah, you could pursue it. Person might meet a listing. I've won cases for people in their 20s. It's just a lot harder to do. As I've said before, when you're 50, 55, you need maybe this much evidence. 50, this much evidence. When you're 20, you need, this, just a huge amount of evidence. So it's just, you need a lot more evidence, that's all. But it can be done, but you need to have really, really, really strong doctor's reports and ongoing treatment records. And you'll still find some attorneys who won't touch it. So it's got to be really, really strong. Reconsideration, yes. Lisa is correct. Reconsideration is the second stage. Thanks. Kelly says, thank you for all your videos. You are very welcome, Kelly. I hope you enjoy them. Prepper Joe, when Social Security sends you to their doctors for a medical review to stay on disability, why aren't the patient or the claimants allowed to have anyone else in the room with them or to record? That's a topic of discussion on the one of the listservs I belong to, and a lot of people are of the opinion you should be able to have somebody with you. I think you could make a pretty good argument. I want somebody with me. Have you been told you cannot have somebody with you? If so, and you have an attorney, that attorney I would be on the phone to the adjudicator saying, wait a minute, under what statute, what grounds are you telling this person they can't have somebody with them? Because I think a lot of people prefer to have somebody with them so they can watch to see what happened and take notes about it. So I'm not accepting the premise that you can't. And again, I'm not aware of any regulation that says that the doctor can tell you no on that. And like I said, if it was my client, I'd call the adjudicator and say, hey, what's the deal? Why are you telling this person they can't have somebody with them? Let's see. Lisa, you're very welcome, but don't thank me yet because I could be completely wrong. I feel your pain. Thank you for all you do, says Richard. You're welcome, Richard. I hope that you get some benefit out of all this. GC24 Styles. If they deny a person at 53 with a less than light work RFC, can't do past work, no transferable skills, would that person reapply and be approved at 55? Why would they deny them at 53? Because the grid rules, if you look at the grid rules, and let's go take a look at them. Okay, at sedentary, if you're limited to sedentary and you have a high school grad, you're a high school grad or more, and you got semi-transferable skills, you're not disabled. The sedentary grid is really, it requires a lot more evidence to say you're limited to a sit-down type of job. Light is a little bit easier. So at light, it's a lot easier to meet the grid at light, or if the grids in general over age 55. There are more grid, put it this way, there are more of these grid rules that apply to people over 55 than there are for people 50 to 55. So it's easier to meet a grid rule after 55. So if you're limited to light, you're not going to be, let's look at light here. A person age 50 at light, you see here, the only way you're going to get approved is if you're illiterate or unable to communicate in English. Everything else says not disabled, okay, if you're limited to light at 50. But at 55, okay, you are, there's a lot of categories you'd be found disabled. So it's just a lot more difficult at 50 to meet a grid than it is at 55. So the same person applying at 53 could lose at 53 but win at 55 in a day, or at least at 50, the 55th birthday. I've had judges amend the onset date, or say to my client, or my client to me, would you consider amending your onset date to your 55th birthday? And sometimes that means no past due benefits, but sometimes that's the right thing to do. So, but yes, that is the correct answer, that at 55, the same case could be approved that would not be approved at age 50. Thumbs up for the video. I said thumb up, I mean thumbs up. Yes, thumbs up are good. I appreciate that. And again, by the way, if you are happy with this, let's see here. If you're happy with me, please review me. Again, go to jonathanginsberg.com and review Jonathan, and you can do a video appreciation or just review me. 5-star reviews, always appreciated. So please, that would be very, very, I'd be very grateful for that. So let me put this on here. I kind of did okay, let's see, I have, okay, so I even put this on the little lower third here. Okay, let's take a look here. In my opinion, emphysema and COPD are also affected by environmental factors such as temperature, perfumes. Correct. That is correct because, and what Lisa's getting at is emphysema and COPD are also affected by what are called respiratory irritants, perfumes, temperature extremes, other things like that. So that's going to eliminate categories of jobs. So if the judge says to the vocational witness, do not, I don't want to hear about any jobs where a person is exposed to extremes of cold or dust or gases or fumes or extremes of heat, that's going to eliminate categories of jobs, which makes it easier to win. Realize everything I look at, or the vocational witness or the judge is looking at it's through the lens of how this impacts your capacity for work. So the more things you can throw into the pile that limit your capacity for work, I can't be around dust, gases, or fumes. I can't be around perfumes. I had a case the other day where my client has very susceptible to any kind of perfume, and it makes her deathly ill. That's going to eliminate jobs. Let's say in a dusty environment or in a department store, let's say, where you're selling, certain things, because in department stores are always spraying perfume on you, things like that. So that might eliminate those types of jobs. So the more jobs categories we can eliminate, the better for purposes of proving disability. We want eventually to eliminate every job. So again, the questions the judge asks the vocational witness are going to eliminate some jobs. We're limited to light work, eliminates all medium and heavy jobs. We're limiting work to jobs that, no climbing ladders, ropes, or scaffolds. That's eliminating a lot of warehouse jobs. So the more limitations the judge puts in it, the better it is for you. And so we want the judge to put so many limitations in that the vocational witness says, Your Honor, I can't think of any job that exists that this person could do. That's what we're trying to do. But Lisa, you make a very good point, and thank you for bringing that up. Anthony Castleberry, is it normal to take 15 months instead of anything by disability case? 15 months is on the outside of normal. Just to give you some perspective, it used to be when I filed an application, we'd get a decision in 3 to 5 months. Now it's more likely to be 8 or 9 months. But I talked to a couple of people last week. It's been 15 months they've been waiting. If it's been 15 months, what I think you need to do is contact your elected representative, contact your U.S. senator and say, look, I've been waiting 15 months. I need you to do make a congressional inquiry and find out what's going on. That is way, way too long. This is water, by the way. If anybody has any ideas, I'm drinking anything other than water. Okay, let's see. Nat Sky, 4th time trying, hearing next Thursday for bipolar. Let me just talk about that. People sometimes say to me, I've applied 4 times. At the end of the day, something's got to be different. If you've been turned down 3 times before, this 4th time, something's got to be different. So I think you want to really make sure you focus on what is different this time than last time, because if you've gone to 3 other hearings, that is, you're not going to get any different result unless something has changed. Maybe your age category has changed, but that's a lot of applications or a lot of times. And again, if nothing has changed, you're going to get the same result. Bill the Tractor Man. I'm on SSDI for 4 years due to confirmed brain cancer. I'm sorry. The tumor affects ability to communicate and comprehend. Want to have a hobby farm with the help of my wife and kids. They want 4-H. Yeah, again, I don't know that a hobby, unless you're putting a lot of hours, 5 or 6 hours a day in it. If you've got brain cancer and a tumor that affects your ability to communicate and comprehend, you're not going to be reviewed. You're going to be disabled. Again, and a hobby is not going to throw off an income. I don't think that's going to be considered SGA if you're doing it with your wife and your kids in 4-H. I wouldn't hesitate to, enjoy your hobby. Go for it. Big one, better late than never. You can always look at the replay. It's on YouTube. They want 4-H animals to make hay, grow some grain. No, I don't think it's going to affect your disability at all. I think that's a hobby that doesn't rise to the level of SGA. But again, just keep in mind that if you're asked how many hours you did it, if you're going 5 days a week and putting in 6 or 7 hours doing it, that starts to look like SGA. That could be a problem. But assuming it's a little more, occasional, I don't think that would be an issue. Thanks for taking your time. You're welcome. Kiera will be 55 in October. Cervical and lumbar stenosis, fibro, migraines, depression, anxiety, Hashimoto's, osteoarthritis, degenerative disc disease, bulging disc, on and off gabapentin. After 55, yes. Hydrogenesis for 30 years. I think that at 55, your case is a lot stronger. I think you got a strong case. I would tell you, by the way, minimize the fibro. I would really focus on the objective evidence, the MRIs, the cervical and lumbar stenosis. You can throw fibro in, but I wouldn't make that the main thing, because I think Social Security judges and Social Security in general is a little cynical about fibromyalgia because it's been kind of abused as a diagnosis. But I think you got a pretty good case there. Applied in June of 23, a hearing in June. Okay, you've done pretty well. So you got a hearing within a year. Pre-hearing talk with attorney. All he basically says, do your best. None of the information, none of what I learned from you, all they do is Social Security don't feel good. Look at my videos. I've got a whole series of videos about applying for, hearings rather, and just educate yourself. I mean, again, it's not, you're not going to be asked to do anything unusual. It's just common sense questions, but if you know what's coming, that's going to help you prepare. So use the resources. There's, obviously I'm out there, there's other attorneys out there that have hearing videos. Learn from as many people as you can and take, just learn about what to expect at a video. And I've got several videos here at my YouTube channel about what to expect actually at a hearing. Am I worth it? I'll humbly say yes. Okay. Okay, hard to get for mental health diagnosis, 4-time on meds, see doctor. Yeah, again, it's going to be hard. It is hard for mental health because you can't take an MRI of depression. It's going to be based on your psychologist or psychiatrist reports. It may be, maybe get third-party statements, other people who know you. It could be relatives, it could be friends, people that have observed you and the problems you're having. If there is schizophrenia and you hear voices, and you have people that have observed that, or people that have observed you in deep depression, get those statements. That's non-medical evidence that can be very, very compelling, and that might be enough to tip the balance. But it's always hard with mental health. I always tell people that in my book, if I'm taking a mental health case, I'm looking for, suicide attempts, some level of severity, suicide attempts, failed medication trials, inpatient hospitalizations, a steady record or a regular record of ongoing treatment with a psychiatrist, psychologist. It's just, you got to just really have the paper trail, I think, for mental health cases, at least in my opinion. So I'm selective with those because I know how hard it is to win. Doug's, let's see. Oh, Bill the Tractor Man says, your videos helped me win my case. I'm very happy to hear that. And I'm sorry about your diagnosis, and I wish you the best, but I'm glad you won. Doug Winter says, my family doctor filled out the functional report. My neurosurgeon will not do this. It's better to have the neurosurgeon do it, but if he won't do it, he won't do it. The family doctors will help. The medical records. Look, I think objective test results, MRIs, CTs, are probably as important or more important than a functional capacity form. So if you've got MRIs that show severe disc herniations or other problems, that's going to speak for itself. And your family doctor is saying, I've seen this person for a long time, he's limited in this way. I think that will help. So it's better to have it than not have it. But it's better to have the neurosurgeon fill it out. But if he won't do it, he won't do it. And nothing you can really do about that. I would say, I'll tell you that I've done this for 30-something years. It used to be a lot easier to get these functional capacities forms filled out. It's more difficult now. Doctors are busier. They don't want to take the time. So I probably have fewer filled out than I ever did. But if it's a strong case and the medical evidence is strong, it doesn't really seem to matter. And I think the other thing is, a judge can disregard a functional capacity form if the underlying medical record is not consistent with it. In other words, if the functional capacity form says my patient can only stand for 15 minutes, but there's nothing in the medical record indicating, that you're limited standing, or the functional form says my client uses a cane to walk, but there's nothing in the record about a cane, then the judge can disregard the functional capacity form. So it's not, it's not the golden egg. I mean, it is helpful, and the more you have of them, the better. But you don't absolutely have to have them and still win. Mikey says, my psychiatrist put me on benzodiazepines for anxiety 20 years ago. Winning off them is causing terrible withdrawal, exacerbating bipolar. Will that give? Yeah, I think that if you're being weaned from prescription medication like that, the question is, how long is the weaning process going to be? Is it a 2 or 3 month process? Realize that disability is looking at your impairment over the period of over a year. It's got to be at least a year. So if the weaning process is a year, then that certainly would benefit your case. And I think also it shows that the doctor's weaning you off for a reason, maybe that those medications are no longer effective. So that may be something to to look at as well. That would certainly help your case. But yeah, that would be relevant. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Lisa. Kiera, can't get providers to document exactly what I say. My limitations, they say they don't fill out the functional capacity form. Yes, some doctors won't do it. And again, that's why I think, I would ask a third party, maybe to talk about what they have observed. I think if you keep a pain diary, again, using one of these apps or just on a calendar, I think that, you can certainly testify about it. The medical evidence may speak for itself, but yeah, I mean, not every doctor will fill out a functional capacity form, but that is not going to kill your case if everything else lines up. Son is 46 and was diagnosed, CIDP. I'm not sure let's see what CIDP is. CIDP, medical abbreviation. Make sure I'm doing the right thing. Chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, which is a very, very serious condition. So it's a polyneuropathy, demyelinating polyneuropathy. Okay, understand that. A year ago, hasn't it worked? Since symptoms stop disability, takes IVIG. Even though he's 46, this would be a case that I think is probably a winner. That is a very, very serious condition, and the symptoms are almost certainly work preclusive. That says to me that is a viable case. I would, if you're asking me would I take it, yes, based on what you're telling me there. ALJ sometimes leads the vocational witness. They'll find this through, yes. GC24 Styles says the ALJ sometimes leads the vocational witness, so they'll find those three jobs. Basically the VEs always come up with 3 examples of jobs. It's not so much they lead the witness, but they're asking questions and know the answer to. So they know if they ask a question a certain way that they're going to get answers, yes, these jobs exist. So yes, it is, the ALJs know how to set the case up to deny it, if that's the way to put it. Scylla is legally blind, meet the rules, denied, have a medical records and letters showing my condition, not sure what to do at this point. Just keep appealing. If you're denied, if you're in recon now, just make sure you submit those records to the adjudicator. If you go to a hearing, then all those records, the judge would look at it, take a new look at it, and hopefully you win. Being legally blind, the judge will ask, what can you see? Because, being legally blind, maybe you can see things at a distance. You just can't do close-up work. But I think most vocational witnesses would say if you're legally blind, then it's probably not something, not a situation where you'd be able to do too much work. So I think that, go to a hearing. Realize, people say, well, why did the recon adjudicator deny me? Why did the initial adjudicator deny me? Like I said, they're overworked. I mean, they just, there are some adjudicators, they got so many files on their desk, it's just easier just to deny it, move it on, and that's that, because they got too many files. They're under a lot of stress. They're asked to do a lot of work. I mean, if you look at some of the blogs that talk about people that work for Social Security, they're really unhappy. They're just not really appreciated, underpaid, overworked. So, I've seen many cases where a person clearly if somebody had taken 10 minutes and looked at the record, they say this person's clearly disabled, but they got turned down because the adjudicator just was too busy and they just deny it. So don't be frustrated or surprised if an adjudicator denies it, because you get to a judge, you're going to get a much more detailed hearing. And I'm not ragging on adjudicators. They're overworked, they're stressed out, they're asked to do a lot of jobs. It's a really tough job to do. They have an incredible amount of attrition during training. I think I mentioned I was at a seminar a couple of weeks ago in Nashville, and the commissioner of Social Security came and he talked about this. He's like, we got a real problem. People are quitting during, they're quitting during orientation. Other agencies are poaching them. We have a hard time attracting good talent and keeping good talent because right now it's just not a fun place to work. And we're trying to change that. In fact, the other week I think they gave them like Friday, several hours on Friday off. For a couple of weeks, and of course some congressional people in Congress are bitching about that. They're overworked. They're not getting their job done. Why are you giving them a break, free time, paid time off? And the reason is the commissioner's like, they're under incredible stress. They're working really hard, and they can't get it all done. Let me at least show them I care about them. But again, you got people in Congress that are, don't do that. Make these people work to their die at their desk. It's ridiculous, but that's what we got. So, don't blame the adjudicators. They're doing the best they can. Some obviously are better than others, as is the case with anything. But I think that, in many situations, unless the record is crystal clear, it's if there's something that is not that they don't, it's going to save them time to just get the case off their desk, they may just do that and let somebody else deal with it. So that's just the reality of it. Why do I have to get my backpack in installments? Back pay, you're asking about back pay. If you're SSI, they pay you in installments. They don't give you the lump sum. They do it over, I think it's 3 installments, every 6 months or something like that. Answer is, there's no good reason. It's just somebody at some point wrote a regulation and did that. There's no answer to that. Maybe the answer is that, if they got too much money, it would take them over the ridiculously low resource level. I think it's $2,000. So they figured that by getting it in 3 installments, that they'll use up the money before it becomes an asset problem. But this is just another archaic rule that's been enforced for years that has no logical reason behind it. There's no good reason behind it. It's ridiculous. They should not do it. But, I'll let you know as soon as they put me in charge. But right now, that's the deal. A lot of cases can be won with medical reports, and most of all MRIs are current. One of my case with current strong evidence. X-rays are not. Roy's play. Roy, you make a very, very good argument. The more your medical evidence is clear, it is organized, you got MRIs that show something severe, yes, that is how to win early, just to make sure the adjudicator has all that information there. Hey Vincent, good evening to you. My YouTube videos, I'm glad you found the YouTube videos helpful, Roy's Place. That's why I put them out there. Gemstone Prepper, if I lose my apartment while waiting for a decision on SSDI, can I claim squatters' rights at the local circuit? You can claim it. Ain't gonna work, but you can claim it. 30,000 people died last year waiting. I had a client die. I have a case right now, my client died while waiting. Clearly should have been approved. He died. I'm trying to track down his wife so we can proceed as a dependent, as a survivor, as a party in place. But I had a client die, but 30,000 people died. But yeah, claiming squatters' rights at the Social Security office, I don't think that's going to work. Kay Mastans, do you get medical reviews after age 50? No, you don't. Because you're eligible for regular Social Security where disability is no longer a factor. Passive income does not count, correct. Passive income does not count to SGA. Only earnings income, like earnings for work. But passive dividends, rentals, as long as you're not doing anything much, that does not count towards SGA. That is correct. Tara, you have a lot of good outcomes with age 51 car accident. Judge, oh, by the way, that's another one I want to show you here. I want you to know where to look up the judges. And there are several places. I'm going to show you one. This is not the most updated one, but it's still pretty useful to me. If you go to the Atticus site and you just type in, SSD judges approval rates, you will see. So let's look up. And again, I don't know this particular judge, but let's just see. You can see it ranges from 97% to 10%. So let's look up Judge Wallace, since you are asking about him. Oops. Okay, William Wallace, 87% approval. Well, you know what? You got a good you got lucky, because that is a really, really high approval rate, one of the highest in the country. So you're 51. You've got something significant. You've got a really high approval judge. You're in good shape, I would say. I would love to have judges with that high of approval rate all the time. But yeah, that's what I use this for. So I know my hearing prep is going to be different when I have a judge who's approving 87%. He's one of the top 25, as opposed to a judge here that's 18%. I don't know this judge, but 18%. This judge 10%. You don't want these judges because you're not gonna win. But you could have judge 10% in the same office as judge 87%, and you happen to get judge 87%, you win. You get 10%, you lose. That's ridiculous. That's a lottery. That's not fair. But again, I'm not in charge at this point. But that's what the real is. But that's what I would look. So do I have outcomes? Yeah, I have good outcomes with that, with a good case like that. Sue says, I turned 60 in February and I've had 2 back surgeries, 5 foot surgeries, diagnosed with IBS. I applied. You got denied. I think you got a good case. I'm surprised they denied you. That's a winning case. I would take that case. Again, assuming you're still insured, I would start over if you're starting. If the case is closed, that's a good case. That's a real good case. All right, Tara. I think again, is that you're the one with the high percentage judge? Oh, June 5th, talk with attorney. Okay, so all these things that you're talking about. Yes, you're Tara. You've got a. I think all these things just add to it. I think you got a real good chance at winning with the judge you've got. Okay, so side effects are horrible. Yes, side effects of medications can make a big difference. I've won cases on that alone. Does it help, Sabrina says, does it help to turn to a grid rule to the SS office during a waiting period? Yes. Should you let the adjudicator know that you made a grid rule? Absolutely. You definitely want to do that. You want to tell them where they should look because they may not know to look. And if you tell them why you meet the grid rule, absolutely. And again, remember at the grid rules, it talks about transferability of skills. So, if it's basically saying like 202.06, your high school grad or more does not provide for direct entry to skilled work, semi-skilled or skilled background skills not transferable. Why are they not transferable? You've got severe depression. You've got medication side effects that make you sleepy. You've got some sort of irritable bowel syndrome. That's probably not a good example, but you've got again depression. You've got anxiety. You've got medications that make you dizzy or drowsy. You've got vertigo. You've got any number of things that would make those skills not transferable because they're going to be blocked by some non-exertional impairment like your pain level or your medication side effects. So you definitely want to make sure that when you talk about why the skills are not transferable, explain why they're not transferable. Many times I use medication side effects or associated depression or PTSD or something like that. But don't forget that part of it if you're arguing for the grids. Let's see here. I stopped totally preferred acupuncture. Well, acupuncture, Carmen, is considered not an approved, acupuncturist is not an approved medical source. So if you're pursuing disability when you've got mainly acupuncture, that's not going to help you very much to win your case, unfortunately. They don't really buy into non-Western medicine. So they consider acupuncture a non-approved medical source. It's kind of like chiropractic. So, it shows you've sought treatment, but the conclusions and the assessment of the chiropractor, the acupuncturist, will not carry any weight. Let's see here. what we got here? MTS, severe scoliosis, had 3 back surgeries, osteoarthritis, Cushing syndrome, neuropathy, fire disability, 9 months. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how old you are. If you're over 50, 3 back surgeries, I'd say you got a pretty darn good chance. I would be surprised if you didn't get approved, but not shocked. And if you didn't get approved, you definitely want to appeal. If you're under 50, if you're 35, yeah, it's going to be a harder case, but still 3 back surgeries, that would still say to me things are pretty difficult for you. And I suspect the symptoms you've got are pretty significant. Yeah, Sue, I think you've got a winning case. KJ, I got a psych CE coming up. What should I expect? I'm 57, low frequency hearing loss, tinnitus, but I don't have Meniere's disease. The CE will go through those things. Is it a CE with a audiologist? Is it a CE with, something else? It's probably not going to do much more than confirm what you already know. But if being 57 helps, the question is, low frequency hearing loss, in my view, is probably not enough to win disability. You don't have Meniere's, tinnitus is not enough to win. I think you probably need something else going on. I don't know that that's going to be enough. It might, the fact that you're over 55 helps, but the question is, it's not an exertional, so you're not going to be in the grid rules there. And so now you have to turn to, whether there's, that's a tough one. I would say you probably need something more than that. That to me is probably not enough to win a case. It's going to be tough unless you got a really, really a judge with 87%. Kendra says, expecting any changes, just going through the motions, denied, finally got my ALJ hearing. That low approving San Diego judge, VE says no to 3 hypotheticals, receiving denial, found discrepancies. Yeah, this is one where I would definitely file an AC appeal, because if the evidence is strong on your part, I definitely think that getting the AC appeal is correct. And as far as being closer, by the way, you've got an attorney, stick with your attorney. I think I've mentioned this before, but when you are, when I'm looking to represent somebody, and again, I'll show you this again because I want to make sure that I get the word out. Cases are done by video and phone, so it doesn't matter where I am or where you are. I'm doing hearings. I had a hearing today with somebody in Virginia. I got a hearing tomorrow. Someone in Washington State. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. It does not matter where you are. So being local, if you want to come in and meet the attorney in person, obviously you want to get somebody local. But I'm happy to do meetings by Zoom, Microsoft Teams, by phone. I'd say, maybe 10% of my clients are local. I don't meet them in person. I mean, very rarely do I meet somebody in person. So it's almost all virtual now since COVID. It's totally changed. So it doesn't really matter where one is. So if that's holding you back from whether it's me or somebody else, don't let that hold you back. Okay. Could the SSA change the new musculoskeletal listings in effect after 4 of 21 and get rid of these? They could. In my experience, if they're going to change it, they're going to make it more difficult to meet. There's not an appetite in Congress to make it easier. In fact, I was reading something on the news where people were talking about what are the possible changes for SSA if Trump wins versus Biden. And if they said if Biden wins, one of the things that's being floated is making it more difficult to win disability. Maybe they may go after the year of past due benefits you can get. They may have to go. They may make the waiting period longer. They may change the rules even more. So it could get worse. I mean, it really could. If Trump wins, obviously it's the commissioner that's there now, who I think is really good, is going to be out of a job. So who knows what they'll put in. So I think that we got to watch it really closely. If you're so inclined to let your congressperson know that SSDI is your lifeline and don't mess with it. And, and again, I will tell you, I've done this for many, many years. Most people who file for disability don't want to be pursuing disability. They would much rather be working. And, it is really hard to label yourself as disabled. It makes people, I had a lady I was talking to today, she was in tears. saying, I've always worked, I've supported myself, raised a family, I can't do it anymore. But I'm so torn because I feel like I'm letting everybody down. They hate it. Most people don't want to be on disability. You're going to make a lot more money working. You're going to have a social life. I mean, people have told me that their friends were all, their coworkers. They're contributing to the family income. It was a two-person household income. Now becomes one. It's become difficult. Nobody wants to go through that. Who wants to sit at home for 2 years waiting for Social Security to, issue a decision, and then you get judged, 17% and you lose? So most people don't want to. And this notion out there that people are gaming the system to get on disability. There's a lot better ways to game a system. This is not one to game. I mean, if somebody's trying to rip off the system, this is not the one to rip off. It's just too slow, too uncertain, and it's too hard to do it. I mean, they make it so hard to win now that this is just. It makes no sense to me when people say I know people who are out there who can work and they're not. That's a bunch of BS. Most people, I've represented, I can count on the fingers of one hand, ones that I thought were really probably, pushing the envelope a little bit as far as whether they were telling the whole truth. Most people, there are more good cases, legitimate cases denied than, that should be approved than the other way around. Very few cases that are approved that really shouldn't be. They make it really hard. So, I don't think the listing is going to get any easier, is what it boils down to. Ms. T.S.W.V. Yang, I have anxiety, depression, congenital cervical stenosis, SVT, syncope, panic attacks, facility still denied. I don't know how old you are. And again, I think if you're under 50, that would probably explain it. But those conditions, if they produce symptoms that are, really difficult for you, then, that would be a viable case. But I think if you're under 50, unless the symptoms are really, really severe, going to be hard to win. SSDI, Mark says, will it hurt me if my wife works and I have money in the bank? No. SSDI is only concerned about whether you're disabled or not. Your assets, your household income is irrelevant to SSDI. So no, not for SSDI. Adventures of Mia and Gucci. When is the best time to get your help? Would someone start without you and deny? I help people at the beginning. I'd say probably 35-40% of the cases I take in, I do the application. A number of people, probably higher than that actually, and maybe 20-25% hire me at recon, maybe 10% hire me right before hearing. It just depends. You can hire an attorney at any stage in the process. I do a lot of applications just because people just say, you do it, you know what you're doing, let me just take it off my plate. So you can't. But on the other hand, if you think you can win on your own and you want to give it a shot, like I said, I don't get offended by that at all. Go for it if you want to try it on your own. And if you're looking to hire somebody, maybe do it at recon. And the only reason I even tell you to do it at recon as opposed to the hearing is, if a medical condition is not raised at initial recon, then you try to raise it at a hearing, the judge might not consider it because the judge is going to say, we're at a hearing stage, this should have been addressed at recon and initial. And every once in a while when I'm doing a recon appeal, somebody brings something up that was not mentioned at initial, we raise it at recon and we avoid that problem of a judge at a hearing being upset because something was never discussed before. But that's entirely up to you. And some people just say, let me try it on my own. Others say, take it, let me put it in your hands. So either way is fine. And like I said, it doesn't oftentimes the attorney's fee if we're approved early is pretty low, so it almost doesn't really make, if the money is the reason, whether you hire somebody early or not, it's probably not going to be that much money if we get approved early. And also a lot of times I answer questions about onset date and other kind of technical stuff that can be helpful. Okay, getting a little short on time here. Let's ask a few more questions. Okay, so Kira just talked about this exact same. At the hearing stage, the judge found a mistake by Social Security, sent me back to initial, now I'm at recon for the second time. And this is, again, a situation where something was not done at initial, and so the judge sent it back to the administrator, to the agency. And you got to wait. And again, maybe there was some issue that should have been developed by them. If it was not your fault, I'd be pretty upset about that. But if it was something you just failed to mention then, but now you're mentioning at a hearing, that would be why. The judge is not going to consider something not developed before because there won't be any evidence in the file about it. Paul, just found out I have central and foraminal stenosis, blah, 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 correct us. It could be, I mean, look at the Blue Book, look at meetalisting.com and look at the Blue Book and make an argument that it meets a listing, but don't be surprised if they say you don't meet a listing, because it's got to be a severe level. And you can have a winning level of stenosis and facet arthritis and so forth, and win at a hearing, but lose at initial because it's not listing level. People sometimes reach out to me, I know I meet a listing. My response is, you probably don't. They make it so hard to meet the listing, especially for back pain. It's just really, I'm thinking back on the number of cases that, I filed for people for back pain that met a listing. Very, very few. I mean, just, over 30 years, in the back situation, 1 or 2. I've had some for cancer. We made a listing. I've made a listing argument for heart issues, for other things, but back issues, just really, really tough. Get rid of the new rules, which makes it harder for people to qualify. Ripsy Tina says, get rid of these rules that make it harder for people to qualify just because they don't use 2 canes or a walker. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think they made it too hard. And it's really, there are a lot of people out there who are suffering because they got to wait so long. Live in another country. Adventures of Mia, can you live in another country? Yes. It depends on the country. And you have to look up, Google living in another country and receiving SSDI. It will tell you which countries you can do it, which countries you can't. At 49, will the grid rules apply? Technically, they probably won't. I've argued that the grid framework applies at 49 and 9 or 10 months, but technically they are not. Again, at 49 and 1 month, they probably won't. 49 and 11 months, I've had judges do it. It's they're less likely to do it nowadays for some reason, but I've done that before. But generally speaking, the grids are going to kick in at 50. And let's put it this way, most judges are going to say, I would consider amending your onset date to your 50th birthday, as opposed to saying, I'm going to grid you out at 49 and 10 months. I can't stop, let's see. Okay. Go to your nurse practitioner. Can't stop my girlfriend who keeps wearing perfume. It's beyond what I can do. I can't help you with that. Received my ALJ denial, but I'm pushing forward. Yes. Thanks so much. You're welcome. What's the wait time to see an ALJ in Texas? I don't know. It changes, but that statistic may be someplace I don't know. People go to the doctors and don't rely on the same ones the same data you already submitted. Be proactive. Yes, I would agree with that. Arkansas Unearthed, after you answer my questions, subsequent videos and will apply my own. Keep you posted and reach out for a consult. Okay, cool. Yeah, give it a shot. Give it a shot. Angie, 52, with a neck nerve issue, vertigo, stomach ulcers, NMD. What's the best way to present that? I always present the objective evidence first. So the neck nerve issue, there's an MRI or nerve conduction study. The vertigo, there can be tests for that. The ulcers. I think those are going to be the objective type of things. The major depression is significant, and it may be really important if there's medications, there's a lot of history there, but I personally always start with the physical stuff unless the mental health is just overwhelming. Do I have personal questions for money? I don't really have time for that so much anymore. What I would tell you is reach out to Greg Brinkley. He will do that. If you reach out to Disability Yoga on YouTube or contact him through his website, I think it's greg@gregbrinkley.org. He will answer questions on a fee basis, and he's done it all. He's seen it all, so he can probably answer a lot of questions for you. He's not an attorney, but he formerly worked for Social Security, and he would be a good resource if you have a question you want to basically, just get a consult for a brief couple of questions. And I'll typically answer them on the YouTube channel, or somebody sends me an email, but obviously I can't spend hours researching something. Let's see, 16 months for initial decision in Texas. So yeah, that says to me that Texas is still a mess. And they don't have enough people. Should my attorney be doing anything in the appeals process? File the appeal. Never heard anything else. Calling with medical updates. Yeah, I mean, what I do is, every email I send out to my clients basically says, have you seen a new doctor? Have you had a new medication? So I'm constantly updating the adjudicators about new stuff. So that's what I do. But, again, the amount of time it takes to get these appeals considered is months. I mean, you see this person in Texas. So you're not going to hear from your attorney every week, every 2 weeks, even every month. But they should let you know what's going on. And what I do, we use a case management program called My Case, which has a portal. So people, whenever we do something, we put it on there so they can log into the portal, they can see what we're doing. And people sometimes will call me and say, can you download what the Social Security file says? We can download it to them and send them that as well. So, we try to give people status updates, but yeah, people that call every week for a status update, that ain't gonna work because there's not enough going on in these long wait times. But periodically you should hear from your attorney. Let's see. Do you see a list of disability lawyers per state that you recommend? Again, as I said, I do cases in every state, so I'm not so much doing that anymore. There are lawyers, if you said to me, I want an in-person hearing or I want a lawyer in a particular state, yes, I know a lot of lawyers. Like I said, I went to NOSCR, and I met a lot of lawyers. A lot of people reach out to me from the videos, so I know a lot of people. So if you have a particular need for a local lawyer and you email me, ssdanswers123@gmail, I will give you some names of people. But that is, if that would only be if you really want to have a local person you can come in and visit a couple of times, or you want a in-person hearing. But if not, it doesn't really matter, whether it's me or anybody else. That doesn't really matter where you live or where your attorney lives. 18 months, yeah, bad. SSDI, J Deep says, SSDI was approved in May, stopped working in January, pays a spinal cord injury. Re-review, probably not. I mean, spinal cord injuries don't generally just, recruit, or they don't spontaneously heal. So if it's a severe spinal cord injury, probably not going to be reviewed. MS, depression, anxiety, age 42, been waiting for initial decision. Yeah, I've actually got pretty good results with most MS cases because judges realize that it's not going to spontaneously get better. And, MS obviously causes a lot of significant symptoms. So even though you're younger, I've won many cases for people in their 40s with MS, assuming it is symptomatic. Had my friend help me fill out a functional form, his son filled out. Yeah, that's good. That's a smart move. Smart move. Good evening. Been calling to get a response back from you guys. I live in Alabama. Really the best way to reach me is email. We get so many phone calls every day, and I'll tell you what I do. I have a program called Clio Grow, and basically anybody who calls with a new case goes into Clio Grow, and I look at it every day. The phone calls, the emails go directly in. The phone calls, somebody has to transcribe them in. So, if you've not heard back, it's simply because, like I said, last week was crazy because I had so many hearings, I couldn't get to everything. Now, next couple of months, and the reason I had so many hearings, by the way, my own fault, we're allowed to put in a calendar showing what days were available in the 10 different regions, and you got to do it 6 months in advance. I just did the one for November yesterday. Back last November, I failed to do it for May of 24, and so I got hit with like 25 hearings or something in May because everybody was scheduling them. And so I would have 3 a day. I mean, it was crazy. So that was my own fault. But going forward, I've done that, so my hearing calendar is a lot more manageable. So I should be able to get back to folks a little bit sooner. So Raphael, I'm sorry that we didn't get back to you sooner. I will check it and see if I can figure out what happened and who's supposed to be giving you a call back. Okay. Jason says, go to your nurse practitioner next time it's the same doctor. Yeah, good point. Jason's point is a nurse practitioner might be more willing to fill out a form than the neurosurgeon. Good point. Pardon. In my opinion, which way will the judge lean? I applied June 23, denied, filed for seems. I mean, I don't know what your medical condition is. Oh, your medical. You've talked about that. I'm sorry, Tara. Let's see. I've got to go back up here and figure out what it is. I hate to sort of, let's see here. I'm sorry, Tara. I'm looking at all these things here. I don't remember what you told me you had here. I can't find it off the top of my head, but I would just say this: if you have a condition that is limiting you in terms of your functioning at home, at work, I think that's what you're really looking for. Anything, I'm sorry, Tara, I just can't find. Oh yeah, here we go. Car accident, broke your neck, foot, knee surgery, and foot still undergoing treatment, pain. Yeah. Oh, yeah. With that judge, yeah, you're going to win. I think you're going to win. Okay. Let's see here. Anything else? All right, we're getting close to the end because I've got. Oh, here's my troll again. Just ignore people like that. Kevin says he was there last week. So anyway, I got a letter saying insufficient evidence. My lawyer got me approved in the appeals council. Good, great. This is what austerity does. Yep. Well, there's no lobby. People who are applying for disability have no lobby. Case manager stated each section is 6 months to a year for all three sections, not at the hearing. For initial and recon, yes, 6 months to a year. Recon, 5 or 6 months, you'll get a hearing. 44 low income and have at least 20, 30 different health issues. Is it, okay, Crystal says I'm 44, low income and have at least 20 to 30 different health issues. Is it helpful to include every single one of them? I can't speak to what those are. I don't know what they are. I personally would say pick out the top 3 or 4, focus on those. You can mention the others, but it's going to make things really confusing for Social Security, either adjudicator or hearing, for them to consider 30 different conditions. Now, maybe you're the unicorn who actually has 30 things that are disabling, but 30 different diagnoses doesn't, they may not be disabling. I mean, you may have, mild, degenerative disc disease. You could put back pain, or you may have one diagnosis that covers, there are 5 or 6 diagnoses that cover one body part. I would try to compress those. I wouldn't file with 30 different conditions. I think that the application allows you 10. That's pushing it, in my opinion. 3 or 4 is your best bet. Pick your best 3 or 4 and go with those. If there legitimately are more than that, put them on there. But it's hard. I've never seen anybody with 30 disabling conditions in my career. So, just for whatever it's worth. If approved for SSDI, SSI is means tested, Tara. So if you have very low income and you applied for SSI, you have to have applied for it. You can maybe get it for the 5 months waiting period before SSDI kicks in. But many times if people are qualified for SSDI, their SSDI would say 90% of the time, 95% of the time offsets their SSI. You don't get both. You won't get it. You can't double dip. You get one, the higher of the two. And SSI, again, is means tested. So if you have any sort of assets or household income, you won't get it. All right, last couple of questions here. Philip Rushman, 49, aortic aneurysm toward rotator cuff, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I mean, aortic aneurysm is pretty significant, rotator cuff. If you were 56, I think you got a really strong case. 53, good case. 49, decent case. I think it just depends on what the medical evidence says and what the functional issues that arise from that and that the medical evidence is talking about. Functional issues, what you want to focus on. Okay, Jason, thank you for your comment, but we can go to the referral from the Commission for the Blind. Okay, Vincent, Harry, you get SSDI. Yes, that's correct, Vincent. You can get SSDI and SSI if your SSDI has less money than the SSI, but you got to be below the income and resource threshold. Okay, we're at almost 2 hours. We'll take it all the way to 2, I guess. Okay. See many congressional hearings discussing rampant SSDI by undeserving claimants. Nothing versus low-paying ALJs. Bingo. You're right. That's exactly right. There is nothing in Congress about people who pay nothing, or the 15%, 10% judges. but they're really concerned about the judges who pay a lot or that people are claiming fraud. Yeah, there's a narrative in Congress that's false, but the narrative in Congress is a lot of fraud. There is not that much fraud. Now, I will tell you that the new commissioner is aware that there are judges who are way below the statistical mean in terms of approval, and I think that if he's in there for another year or two, he will begin to address that because he's aware of it and he knows it's not right. But is he going to be there in 3 months or I'm sorry, in a year after the next election? Does he have aspirations for higher office? Commissioner O'Malley ran for president at one point. Now, I assume if Biden wins, he'll be there for at least another couple of years and he can probably do a lot of good in those couple of years. But as he put it to us in his speech, this is a very big ship and it moves very slowly. So it's really hard to make significant changes and there's a lot of things to change, and going after low-paid judges is probably not on the top of the list. Getting the backlog down is at the top of the list. Things like that. So, will it ever happen? Maybe, but when is anybody's guess. Let's see, Augustine Morris, approved for SSDI reconsideration, have not received a benefits or reward. It's been a couple of months. Again, if there's no SSI, that's too long. I would either call the Social Security office or call your U.S. Senator and have them make a phone call. That'll get the money released. Sometimes it gets processed, stuck on somebody's desk. Okay, SSDI and Medicare coverage. Medicare may cover it. I'm not saying that's not the case. Carmen says Medicare is covering her acupuncture. I'm just saying that for Social Security disability adjudication, when you're applying for disability and you have a chiropractor or an acupuncturist records, they're not considered authorized treating sources, or I forget the term for it, but they're not approved. They're not considered approved medical sources. So, you're not going to win, in my opinion, unless, the stars really line up for you. You're not going to win a case if all you've got is evidence from your acupuncturist or your chiropractor. These are just not they're just not approved medical sources. But it doesn't mean Medicare won't pay for it. Medicare may very well pay for it. Okay, understanding that the reason for installments was claiming it used it for a drug-fueled party. It could be. I mean, again, I think, bad facts sometimes make bad law. I mean, the Eric Kahn case is still, had rippling effects. That was a big fraud case. They got rid of the treating source rule because of that. So, but the installment plan for SSI has been around for as long as I've been doing this. So I'm thinking it's just, it's just maybe they thought that people in SSI, because of the asset issue or because they didn't want them to use up their money, who knows? Maybe they thought they were trying to, help them not use up their money when they got it, because people would take their money and use it all up, and SSI is people at SSI have a low income anyway. Very patronizing, but that's what they may have been doing. Okay, Tara says, I'm the GOAT. Hey, well, I appreciate that. You didn't say their name, Tara, no, but I appreciate that very much. And again, if you are so inclined, leave me a review. I really would appreciate that. That is something that goes a long way to help me build my practice. Even if you're not my client, I've had people who are not my client leave me nice reviews, and I really appreciate that. Applied late 23 medical assigned grid rules. The grid rules do work when you're 54. They don't look ahead, they look at as of the date of your application. As your onset, it's when the grid rules. And you realize you could change age categories. So you could go from 54 to 55 in the middle of your case. And again, I've had judges say, well, I'll approve it as of the 55th birthday if you're willing to voluntarily amend your onset date. And sometimes that means no past due benefits. But yeah, you don't have to reapply. You could it could approve as of your 55th. At what age could you collect your spouse's benefits? That's more of a retirement question. I don't know. What type of country does not take care of the disabled? No comment. What can I tell you? I mean, I just think it's there's a lot of other reasons, a lot of the other things Congress wants to spend their money on to buy votes, and this isn't one of them. Okay, but on the other hand, I don't like when people, slam America. We've got a lot of really positive things in this country, and it's a great country. And if you've traveled any place, you'll know that we got it a lot better here than a lot of other places. So, is it perfect? No. Is the system perfect? No. But I wouldn't trade it for anything else. Okay, back pay is basically when you apply for benefits, and let's say you applied in May of 2024. You applied today. You say I became disabled in October of 2022. In that situation, if you were approved as of October 22, they don't pay you for the rest of October. They don't pay you November, December, January, February, March of 23. April of 23 through the date of your decision is a lump sum representing benefit payments that have accrued during that time. That is your back pay. That is how attorneys get paid, based on the money that accrues while you're waiting. Let's see here. What did I miss? Oh, Jason, fine. Get a life, pal. Get a life. These trolls, I don't know what. If you got nothing else to do, I feel bad for you. Okay, sorry for me. If you use epidurals, will that affect your SSDI claim? Because epidurals are not. No, epidurals are FDA approved. Refusing treatment because you're concerned about side effects, that is let's see, put user in timeout here. That is. Let's see, if you refuse epidurals, that is not going to prevent you from getting, let me get my train of thought back. If you refuse epidurals because you're concerned about the danger of it, the side effects, that will not be held against you. You can refuse surgery, any other kind of treatment, if you're concerned about that treatment but could cause you adverse health effects. If you get a judge with a low approval rate, again, it doesn't always mean you're going to lose, it just means that it's going to be an uphill battle. What did you miss? That's why you got to look at the replay, St. Louis. We just talked about a lot of interesting things. Okay, I have a friend that she had to wait until she turned 60 to claim widow's benefits. Okay, widow's benefits is a different issue. Now, disabled widow benefits, that's a different story. If you are between 50 and 60 and you became disabled within 7 years of your late spouse's death, you can claim on your late spouse's earnings record, and people do that. So anyway, okay, I think we're kind of getting close to the end. Let me just put this in here. Thank you all for attending, and we'll see you next week. Oops. We'll see you next week. Okay, I'm going to cut it off now, and I think that, again, we've had a couple hours here. I really appreciate everybody's time. Again, visit me at ssdanswers.com if you have any, want a case evaluation, want my free download. Reach out to me at ssdanswers123@gmail.com, and I will try to get back to you as I have time. And again, obviously these are good questions. If you have a question you want to get answered in the next live stream, send it to me by email, ssdanswers123@gmail.com, and I will include it on the list of questions to answer. And that way you don't have to be furiously typing and trying to get in with everybody else doing it. But I really appreciate everybody being here, and thank you very much. And I wish you all a great, healthy week. I hope everybody enjoyed Memorial Day, and have a great week until next Wednesday. I will see you then. So we'll close it now. Take care. Bye-bye.